A behind-the-scenes look at how games are made and the people who make them. This is GameDev Deconstructed. Hello and welcome to another episode of GameDev Deconstructed. I'm your host, Nick Culbertson, and today's format is a little bit different. I recently hosted a meetup here in Dallas, Texas for the Dallas app developers, and at our meeting, I interviewed Ali Mirza, who's a great friend, and he's also a marketing master. So I was really like to go in depth for this. It's kind of, I use the podcast sometimes to scratch my own itch. And in this case, it was to learn some of his marketing tools and tips. So I know you all are going to get a lot of value from this. There were some questions being asked from the crowd, so I've tried to clip everything together so that it's totally cohesive. And I really hope you enjoy. He has some great insights, one of them being about, engaging an audience. He says the ABCs. It's up near the front of the podcast, so you'll definitely hear it. The ABCs for talking to your audience. So without further ado, here is Ali Mirza and GameDev Deconstructed. So hello and welcome to Dallas App Developers and the recording of GameDev Deconstructed Live. I'm your host, Nick Culbertson, and we're joined this evening with social media marketing expert and strategist, Ali Mirza. On Twitter, that is at Ali Mirza2K. Ali was a part of our app development panel a couple of years ago.
Last year, yeah.
Yeah, and during that time, everyone walked away with a whole lot of information, and some of it was actionable, all of it was actionable, but there was just so much information that I'm hoping we can revisit a lot of that and get it condensed. But more about Ali, his Twitter profile says he's a digital marketer, growth evangelist, a startup advisor, and he's a founder of iSocialU. Ali has a knack for bringing clarity to the complexity of marketing on social platforms. So, Ali, welcome to the meetup and the podcast.
Thank you, and a lot of fancy words. But what I really do, my background is kind of really interesting. I used to be a software developer for GE, then Microsoft, and then over time, I just kind of fell in love with marketing and transitioned into product marketing and now do social media marketing. So I've been through the process of when you think of an idea and then you think about, hey, how do we make it happen? So you either do the development yourself or you go find other people. So I've been through those stages. So I think that's one of the things I would encourage you guys. Any questions you guys have, that's why I was asking earlier, whether you're working on your own app or for clients, any question that you have, just say it. And my background is not to brag, but I have done a lot of stuff hands-on. So I will be able to relate and hopefully provide some actionable stuff.
Awesome. I think for now on, if someone asks what I do, I'm going to say, well, not to brag. That's going to be that's how I'll preface it. Well, super cool. So the first thing I just wanted to know is if you could tell us a little bit about that background and what you're doing currently.
Yes. So right now I have a social media marketing agency called iSocialU. And it seems like every other person that you run into, they do social media. So the difference that I bring to the table, or my company brings to the table, is the process and the data background. Since my background is data-driven, I'm a software engineer by degree. So I bring the thinking, the mindset that make decisions based on data. Don't just guess it. So questions like, if you're working on the app, how do you get users? So you don't have to guess it. A lot of times you just go look at your competitors and see where they have the most active audience. So that's where you gotta go. So it's a social media marketing agency, iSocialU. I work with some mega brands, a lot of startups and small businesses, and we do two things. Number one is, how do you create engaging communities? And number two is, in the process of creating those engaging communities, how do you convert them to app users, leads, prospects, and sales?
That's awesome. And I definitely want to dig into the actual tactics that you're using to do those things. Because I think last time when we had our panel, you had mentioned some things like Hootsuite and some other names that escape me. So I will really look forward to hearing what your recommended stack of technology is with building that engagement.
Awesome.
So the first topic I wanted to cover is, how can an indie company use social media to acquire the right users?
Yes, so that's one thing that a lot of people do wrong, they get after the users. And I think the way you framed your question, I loved it. It's the right user. It actually used to be my tagline when I started my company. How do you find the right type of users? It's really goes back to the basics. I kind of give you guys example. Let's say if I am working on an app or a product and my target audience is startup founders. Where do startup founders hang out? Node, potentially, right? But startup founders also hang out at, let's say, Starbucks. But if you step back and think about where are startup founders, plus they're thinking about a problem or something that my business solves, that's not going to be Starbucks, that's going to be Node. So going back to the question, you got to kind of step back and identify who is your target audience. And then look at across the board all the social media channels, because it's kind of, that's where most people are these days, right? They are active on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn. So start with that. But once you know clearly who your target audience is, then look at those channels. And the easy thing is look at your competition. If they're competitors, look at their blogs, look at their social media profiles and see where do they get the most engagement? Where do they get like really meaningful comments? That's the audience that you want. Did that make sense?
It does. And I mean, just to already go off script with this, I'm curious, once you've identified that audience, like say I might have an idea in my mind of who I want my audience to be, I don't know how to actually find those people. Specifically with a game development or app development thing, it seems like most of the people who are following me or that I'm following are other people that are creating apps or creating games who are most certainly not my customer.
Yes.
So how do you find them?
Stepping back, one thing I want to add to the previous point. So it's not enough. Let's say if is someone doing an app related to, let's say, food, or someone targeting college students. No, so but you will use this example. So let's say you're building an app and your target audience is, let's say, college students. It's not. We all know college students like Instagram. They're spending time on Instagram. They're spending time on Snapchat. But it's not enough to just say, hey, they are on Snapchat or Instagram, let's go there. My rule of thumb is you got to be able to either in reality or in your mind be able to touch and feel them. So for example, I'll give you guys an example. Let's say, my example of if I'm building a product and it's for startup founders, I can find 50, or if I attend, startup events, I can find, touch and feel a lot of people here. So if you're building an app and your target audience is college students, they are on Instagram is not enough. You got to go more specific. They are on Instagram page of SMU. They are on Instagram page of UTD. So you got to go really, really specific to an extent that you can touch and feel them. And once you know that, let's say, for our app, people are, it's for college students and they are on the Instagram accounts of SMU. If you go to their Instagram and look at their followings or their followers, you can actually see those people. You can look at their names, their images, their profiles and bios. So that's how specific you have to get. So it's not enough to say, hey, my audience is B2B, it's on LinkedIn. That's not enough. It's not enough to say, hey, our audience is moms and they're probably on Facebook. You got to get more specific. And now once you know where your audience is, then you got to have a process in place. Because what you're trying to do, here's the biggest sort of disconnect. Why do we go to social media? Just give me an idea. Why do you guys go to social media, like let's say Facebook? Perfect. Right? What else? Yeah, there you go. Yeah. So we go to social media for information, for entertainment, for education, connection, networking, right? That's how we as consumers use social media. But as businesses, as app developers and app companies, what do we want? We want leads, sales, and prospects, right? So there's a huge, huge, huge disconnect. And that's the biggest reason why social media does not work, or a lot of people feel like social media does not work for business. because there's a huge disconnect. What we want from social media or these channels as a user versus what we want from these channels as businesses or app companies is totally different. So how do you fix it? It's actually super, super easy. So let's forget social media for a second. How did we do business in, like, let's say Stone Age, 5 years ago? So we actually, we don't realize it, but we actually followed 3 steps. And I call it ABC process, and I'll just kind of, close the gap for you guys. Let's say if I open the business today and I'm a lawyer, what I'm going to do is go meet a lot of people. So step number 1, I'm going to meet a lot of people. In step number 2, let's say if I met 100 people, I'm not going to like all 100, right? I'm only probably going to like 10. So in step number 2, I'm going to sit, do coffee or lunch or dinner with those 10 people. And then in step number 3, out of those 10 people, maybe 1 or 2 I'm going to do business with. So either they will become my client or I will become my client. So it's a 3-step process. Attract, then build a relationship, and then convert. And that's the process that we forget when we try to use social media for our apps or our businesses. We just go for convert. So we'll open a Facebook page, or we'll go open an Instagram account and be like, hey, I just created a new app, download it. Hey, I just created a new game, download it. So we forget that we didn't do step A and B. So that's the biggest reason why the social media does not work for businesses. So how do you actually do this? So in my example, by the way, does someone want to tell us or give us a quick, not to put anyone on spot, but what are you guys working on? So I can try to make this more relevant. What's the app someone is working on? Yeah, go for it.
So I'm your audience. Is what you're saying. Yeah. No, but just since it's on the podcast, I'll repeat that. It's called Thrive Baby, and it's for parents being able to track nutrition, fitness, all these different things about their child. Development, yeah. All the things that us parents are obsessed about.
Yeah. So what's the target audience for this business or this app is moms, primarily. Moms. So if I say they're 25 to 40-year-old, got it. So moms 25 to 35, where do you guys think these moms are online? Any guesses? Right. So we already kind of brainstorm, and this is the exercise I do, by the way, with every new client that comes in. They're kind of hey, let's just start with the brainstorming, but we'll narrow it down. And by the way, who's your competition? Got it. So what I would do is, anyone who's a direct competition or in the same space, but what I'm really looking for is who else. So I know my target audience is 25 to, let's say, 35 moms, right? Who else has this audience? So make a list of those companies, maybe it's 4 or 5, and then just kind of spy them, or, yeah, there you go. Perfect. So if you go to, that's actually really good. So if you go to Lululemon's Instagram page, I don't know if they have Instagram Dallas page, or if they're local by cities or by states, but really, good example. If you go to Lululemon's Instagram page, or maybe their Pinterest, you can actually see that audience. So once you identify that audience, then you build the attract, build, and convert funnel or process. So what attracts these moms? So obviously they have kids, right? So they're probably thinking about, they want, the help with the Thrive Baby app, but they also have other aspirations, other problems that they want to solve in in their life. So build content in your A step, because A step is you're attracting people, right? So build or produce content so you can attract these people by educating them, informing them, and entertaining them. Do not try to sell them, because they do not trust us yet. So, I know kind of we went on a long rabbit hole, but going back to your question, Nick, the step 1 is always get very, very specific on who your target audience is. And once you know who your target audience is, or maybe you have assumption in the beginning, then build this process, attract, build, and convert by using your content. So for example, Nick, you just started a podcast, right? So a lot of people that are going to get on your podcast, a lot of people that are going to listen to your podcast, they're just kind of getting to know you. So your podcast is a way of attracting people that are in the similar industry. So that's what you would do after you identify your audience. You will build a process of ABC to really go after these people. And in A, you are entertaining them, educating them, or informing them. And then in the B process or B step, you're building a relationship with them. And in the C process, you're converting them to like a user or a business lead.
But are those processes ongoing the whole time? Like A is constantly happening. I'm not actually ever done with A.
You are exactly right. So,
which actually, that just goes straight into this next question that you can just piggyback with this is, I want to know what you do. I don't want to know recommendations for what we should do. I want to know directly what you do, because you've also done a lot of experiments and you've spent a lot of time on these platforms refining what does work and what doesn't work. So the question being that if you're trying to kickstart a social media marketing campaign, what do you post? How often do you post? And how are you tracking success as you're putting out content on these social platforms?
Yeah. So to track success, it's really, everyone should have Google Analytics installed on their websites, on their landing pages. That's like number one. And then it goes back to, let's say we identify in our example that, hey, we're going to be super active on Facebook. And by the way, I would suggest if you're just starting out, pick one channel. It's really, really hard to be good on Facebook, and Instagram, and Twitter, and LinkedIn. And by the way, I do all of those. So I'll kind of tell you guys what I do, but that's also my business. You have to be super, super careful. Your business is not to be good on social media. Your business is to build your app or your business by using social media. So be careful about the time that you spend on social media. You got to be really productive. So I would pick one channel and really like double down on it. And then to track it, it's really, what's my goal? So my goal, let's say if I'm building an app and my goal is to, hey, I'm going to build, actually, let's take this example, Try Baby. So let's say we want to attract moms, right? So we identified 5 Facebook groups and they all have 10,000 plus moms. If you combine, that's like 50,000 moms in there, right? So now I will join these groups and there's always conversation. So first 2 weeks, I will just engage with these people. That's it. I will not pitch my product. I will not tell them or try to sell anything. Just engage and just be
So give an example. You mean like responding to someone's post or writing a question yourself?
Both.
Okay.
So what happens, by the way, is anyone using Facebook groups right now actively? Right. So what you will realize is there are people asking questions. There are a lot of people. Groups are actually communities. And the reason I'm talking about groups a lot more, have you guys heard of Facebook pages right? So what happens is on Facebook pages, their algorithms control the reach. In the groups, not yet. So if you have a Facebook group of 10,000 people, or let's say even 1,000 people, and you post something, you're going to reach more people. If you have a page with 1,000 people or 10,000 people, the algorithms are going to control your reach. So the algorithms and ads are not in the group. So maybe they will be soon. So that's why, based on that data or that, right now, like I would say, anyone who wants to start marketing on Facebook, I would say, pick your topic, pick your niche, let's say, in your case, and build a group on Facebook. Because then that's the audience that kind of like you build a strong relationship with. But yet, going back to your question, what I would do, identify, let's say 5 to 10 groups, join them, and first watch what type of conversations they are having, and then start jumping into wherever I can be helpful. And then almost all groups, at least once a week, and for strange reason, it's always on Monday, they always like, hey, tell us what do you do? So this is the time to self-promote or promote yourself. That's when you can sort of pitch your business. So what I do, here's my secret. I have about 10 to 15 Facebook groups full of small business owners, bloggers, so people who have online businesses. And this is what I do on consistent basis. I'll just jump in. If someone is stuck with Facebook ad, I will tell them exactly how to use Facebook ad to solve the problem they have. Because one thing we forget is, especially if we are in service-based business, people do not want just information. People want their problem solved. So once you give them all, this is why a lot of time people are like, hey, I know something and I'm just going to keep it secret. I think that's very, very wrong. If you know something, share it. Tell everyone, because it's gonna build your personal brand, and people gonna perceive you as an expert. And guess what? We like doing business with experts. So that's sort of and right now I'm doing the same tactic on LinkedIn. And the reason why, so again, going back to step number one, who's my audience? My audience is business owners. My audience is people who have, companies. Where are they most active? LinkedIn. So once I identified that, then I paid attention to what type of content is being produced on LinkedIn. So I spent a lot of time, I think I started doing this last August. LinkedIn changed some algorithms, and that's how I kind of noticed what was going on. But for me, I'm building the ABC process on LinkedIn.
Okay, yeah. And I am most active personally on Twitter. So I'm curious with how that approach works. And also just on the Facebook group thing, it just seems like it's a lot of work for a very slow growth. And is that what we should expect with trying to grow an audience using social media? Is that or do you hit a critical mass and then it takes off at a certain point?
It is super, super slow. I tell people building an audience on Facebook and actually all social media platforms, it's kind of like building your abs or going to the gym. So how do you get the results, right? You go to the gym, you make a plan, and then you stay consistent. You do the same boring exercises every single day for 6 months, and then you see 2 packs if you were eating right. So social media is the same. It's the same process. So the hack here's the hack. Especially if you're a new launch or a new company, do build your audience or start that process. But the easy thing to do in the beginning is steal someone else's audience. And that's where what I would do is, you guys heard the term influencer marketing, right? So when I'm launching something new, and let's say I don't have audience on that topic, I'll find people who have audiences, the same audience that I want to go after, and pay them to promote my product. Fancy words, it's called influencer marketing, but I'm really stealing their audience in the beginning. But yes, it is a process, and it is really slow. There are hacks, there are things in place, but if you don't have a process in place, the other thing that a lot of people can do is, if you have the budget, you can run ads. So once you run ads, you can drive people to to your landing pages. You can target all the moms in Dallas and let's say take them to the thrivebaby.com website and expect them to buy or download our app. But here's the problem. If today we go to Facebook and we see an ad from Starbucks, we'll click on, how many people like coffee, by the way? Right? So we'll click on that ad and we'll go enjoy that coffee. Let's say if we see an ad from Ali's coffee shop and maybe it's a better coffee, maybe we're going to save more money. We'll never click. Why? Because we don't know who Ali is, right? So we don't have the ABC, the know, like, and trust factor, some people call it, with that brand. And this is the biggest reason why a lot of people fail at Facebook ads, because they try to create, it's really easy to create ads. I think, to me, it's the simplest form of advertising. But they just go after the kill. They don't build a process. But going back to your question, I would say yes. If you are starting on social media and the goal is to build a brand, build a follower base, or let's start doing the attract step so we can do the building relationship and then convert, it is a process. It takes time. But there are a lot of hacks that you can use. One hack that I have used a lot and I recommend to all startups. How many people use Google Alerts? Right. So what Google Alerts is, if you, let's say, go and put your keywords, Google is going to send you articles and blogs on daily basis. So whatever your niche is, your industry is, set up Google Alerts on those keywords, and then you'll start getting these articles that people recently wrote yesterday on your keyword. Now, here's an article that someone wrote, and let's say he's a journalist. Now, if you think about this, journalists, they need more content. They need more stories. That's how they make money. So let's say if I'm Nerdbody, let's use that example. And today from Google Alert, I got an alert that someone wrote an article about, fitness app. And I emailed that person and say, hey, by the way, really liked your article. Actually read it. And then pitch my stuff. A lot of times they need more stories. They need more content. So if you position it right, now you're pitching to people who are in your niche and who are already writing about your topic. It falls into the area of PR, but the mistake people make is they'll just get a bunch of emails, or they'll go scrape emails of different bloggers and journalists and they send them cold pitches and they'll never hear back. But if we follow this step, what we did is we verified that journalist or that blogger is actually interested in our topic. So this is how I was building a food app, and I had keywords set up, or Google Alert set up on food app, new app company, new app startup, things like that. And I was consistently getting different journalists from different magazines, and I was able to get our app in a lot of those. So, going back to so these are the type of hacks that you can use if you don't have an audience, a huge audience on social media. Another one are example of the Facebook groups, right? So let's say Thrive Baby, right? So we identify there are 10 Facebook groups. And by the way, if you go to Facebook and on the top, there's a search bar, just type, let's say moms, or type like startup founders, or type like whatever your keyword is, you'll find like a list of groups, and you'll be surprised how big some of those groups are. Find those, get super, super active. And then once you get to a point, and I have a formula called EEP. So it stands for engage, and then pitch. So let's say if I want to, get on Nick's podcast, what I would do is first I identify Nick, and then I would make sure I engage with Nick at least twice, and then I'll pitch him the third time. So follow that, it kind of like a process that I sort of built. But the point is, once you identify who the owner or the admin of the group is, maybe add them as a friend. Maybe make sure you post or comment on their post, but then pitch. Once you feel like they know your name, once they feel like they know who you are, ask them, hey, by the way, I'm working on this new app, and I feel it's going to be really helpful, a value add to your community. What's the best way to tell your community about this? So, going back to, again, if you do this right, now we didn't build an audience of those thousands of people. We didn't even build a group. We just made sure we identified the influencer or key person, and then we positioned ourselves in a way that now we are friends with them. It's kind of the same thing, when we were in high school, and if we had a crush on someone, we would accidentally be at the same place as that person. So we're doing the same thing.
We tell all our friends, right? So they would tell her.
So I guess the answer to that isn't as clean as I initially thought, because so what I've been trying to do this year is I've started automating posts. So I have, at the start of the month, which was supposed to be today, but I'll do that later, I'll put out like hashtags that are relevant to what I'm doing and automate posts. And this is because for a lot of times, social media marketing for me is a point of stress.
Yes.
Because it feels like I'm not serving my business or my product well if I'm not actively pursuing growing an audience on one of these platforms. So if I can at least automate it, then some of the cortisol goes down. I don't have to feel as stressed out for not, fulfilling that need.
Yes.
But it sounds like it's not necessarily just about what you're posting. It's about building these relationships with influencers.
The faster you can get the audience, right? We all know this. Because if you step back and think, we figure out how to build the product, right? We go to freelancer.com or Upwork, or we find a technical co-founder. Somehow we do figure that out. But the people that I talk to, a lot of them actually, we struggle with finding the audience, right? Or building a relationship with people that are going to support or download our app in the beginning and give us review and give us that initial push. And it kind of goes back to that, do build your audience by using, and I'll name some tools, but there are some shortcuts or there are some hacks. And the hack is what's the easiest way to steal someone's audience? And the Google Alert hack is kind of along those lines. Identifying key influencers and maybe paying them is along those lines, because we're sort of not really, but we are sort of stealing their audiences. But
could you give me an example of that working, like of emailing someone and offering to pay them? Because I feel like that would, if someone emailed me that, it's obviously because I don't have the reach, just maybe talk me through what your pitch looks like and maybe some outcome you've gotten from that.
Yes, absolutely. So actually, I get a lot of pitches. So I have a social media blog, and I write about different experiments that I do, different social media tips, hacks, and trends. So if someone is building a social media tool, I am a sort of good influencer for that person or for them. So there's a tool called Promo Republic. And by the way, you guys might want to write that down. It's a tool that helps you create content. It's called Promo Republic. So they built a tool that helps people how to post or create visual content for social media and then post it and schedule it. So their audience is people who are using social media. And I'm sure they did their research, they found me, and they feel like, hey, here's this guy, and he is writing about social media. So obviously people reading his stuff is our audience. So they actually paid me to do a video for them, which I happily did. So that's where, that's why I believe it's a hack that it's not used enough. Or it's I don't think we should call it a hack. It's a strategy, in my opinion. But think about in our example of the Thrive Baby. If we go search just this text string, top mom blogs in Dallas, or mommy bloggers in Dallas, or top mom blogs in the country, we're gonna get a list of probably hundreds of blogs, right? Ignore the top 50. Because those people are they have their brand, they're going to be really expensive. So start with, people who are from 50 to, let's say, 75. Go to their website. And by the way, there's a lot of time, if you go to their contact page, they're going to have their email. If they don't have their email, there's an extension, I believe it's called Hunter, HUNTR.io. So if you install that extension, go to, let's say, my blog, and click on that extension, it's going to reveal my email. So let's say if you want to reach out to Chirag, because we want him to do something for us and Node. So if you go to nodecoworking.com and use that extension, it's going to reveal the email addresses that are public. I believe the email addresses people use to build their website, sometimes it's visible, sometimes it's not. It's behind that contact form. You can get those with that tool, Hunter. Yes. So in my example, what I would do is get the email addresses of those, people who are from 50 to, let's say, 75. So I have email addresses of 25 bloggers. I'll email them. But again, here's the thing. If you tell them, hey, sell my app or sell my product, they're going to say no, right? So this is where what I would do is look at their blog and see what type of content they're producing. And then tell them, hey, Nick, you have a blog about moms, and it looks like you write about different technology. I have a content that I feel really will be valuable to your audience, and it talks about the top 5 apps that moms should use in 2018. And here's 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 5th one could be my app. Or in a lot of times, in the first pitch that you do or the first kind of email you send, don't even pitch, because you're looking for that relationship with that person. So give them free content, because if you think about Nick, right, he is a blogger, and he's not in top 50. He struggles with producing content, and now I'm giving him free content. And if it's to the quality of the content that he is already producing on his blog, it's going to be really hard for him to say no. So, going back to a lot of people, this process being working, a lot of people actually reach out to me now to do this. Have you guys heard of Instagram shoutouts? Heard that term? So this is where, actually, when you guys look at a lot of Instagram accounts, they will post a picture, and in the caption they will say CC and then @ in another account. So example being, let's say I post a picture and I say CC at Nick's account. What I'm doing is I'm giving Nick a shout out. If I have a huge audience, Nick can actually pay me for that shout out. And that's actually very, very common sort of, practice. And, kind of how to use it. Again, if you guys identify a couple of big Instagram pages that have the same audience that you do, just reach out to them. Hey, how much do you charge for a shout out? That's the sort of term that they use. So it basically, I forgot if it's FCC or FTC rules. If I'm advertising, if I have an audience on any social media channels, and if I'm advertising someone and I'm getting paid, I have to reveal it. So that's why I'll in my text, when I post a picture, in my text I'll say, hey, it's actually from my friend Nick, and here's his Instagram account. What I'm really doing is driving my traffic to Nick's Instagram account because he paid me. You have to reveal it, or you have to, in your post, you have to tell that you got paid for that content. Yes. Yeah. So that's how, if you actually just, tonight, when you guys go to your Instagram, scroll through it, and you'll see a lot of big accounts featuring other big accounts because they got paid. So I think two questions. One is business versus personal, right? So I would say either one is fine, but do one, especially if you're just starting out. So do one, because it is really hard to produce content and build a relationship and commit. So on purpose, just pick one in the beginning. Once you have a huge audience, once I have thousands and thousands of followers on, let's say on Instagram, and if I tell them, hey guys, I have a new account today, go ahead and follow it, they're all most of them will move. So first, I would say pick one. So the more focused you are, the better results you can get. The second is, how many people know about content curation? Have you guys heard that term before, right? So content curation basically means you are sharing content, let's say on your Twitter, Instagram, or any channel, but it's not your content. It's kind of, and we all have done it to some extent at some point. If you read an article on, Forbes.com or CNN.com, and you shared that article on your Facebook, you kind of did content curation. But what I would say is, if you're trying to build a following, or along the lines of your question, do a mix. So have original content, your own thoughts, and then curate the content also on the same the topic. So in my, if you guys look me up right now, I do a lot of content. It's my own, but it used to be that I would just, because my goal was to be known as a sort of marketing person, right? A marketing so-called expert. So the more I talk about Facebook ads, marketing, Twitter ads, Instagram ads, the more people who are my audience, they will perceive me as an expert of those topics, right? But me being one person, it's really hard to produce original content on these topics, right? So what I would do is, from the top blogs, curate content or share content on my channels. So my audience, but ideally, once you share stuff from other channels or other sources, you want to add your own sauce to it, or you want to add your own thoughts to it. And an example being, if I read something and it's 5 tips to grow your Instagram, and I might say, all tips are really good. I have tested tip number 5 and it didn't really work for me. So what I did, I shared content that was produced by someone else, but then I added my own opinion on it. So, but, to answer your question, number one, I would say at a time, especially if, you're starting out, pick either personal or business brand. In my opinion, either one is fine. And then do 50-50. So 50% of your content, so if you're posting, let's say, 5 times a week, so 2 to 3 times your own content, and then 2 to 3 times content that is curated. And by the way, I know we were talking about the tools. Promo Republic is a really good tool. It helps you can create visual content. And by that, I mean, you can create really cool images by using that tool. and also share on your social media channels, on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram, on LinkedIn too. I am actually their affiliate, yes.
So go to that /Ali.
But I didn't give you guys the link.
Yeah, that's right. But with that, is it basically like the things you see where it's an image and then an inspirational quote over the top of it, kind of thing?
Yeah, they give you the images, but one good thing they do is that yes, they do all the research. They actually have a team of designers. Let's say you are in real estate business, or in travel business, or in business niche. So they have different categories. So I can select real estate, and now they're going to show me images and stuff that is relevant to my audience. So that's the thing that I like about Promo Republic. But besides that, the cheapest or inexpensive tool for social media posting and sharing is called Hootsuite. You can create a free account if you're posting, I believe, to five channels. So 3 or 5, 3? It's 3 now. So if you're posting to 3 channels, it's free. If you're posting to more channels, you have to pay. That's the most inexpensive tool. The easiest tool that I've seen is called Buffer. So, and I think they have some free. Most of these tools are freemium. You can do so much for free account, but then you pay to get more features. But yeah, the most inexpensive is Hootsuite. The fastest and easiest is Buffer. But the reason I like Promo Republic is because if you're using these tools, you still have to create the content, right? You still have to take a good image and say something or make a code. With Promo Republic, it's 2 in 1. So that's the reason why I kind of like that tool. With those tools, you will be able to post, schedule, add hashtags, add your context, add your story to the post. It used to be that on Instagram, you were not able to schedule posts using these tools, but they've changed it recently. You can do it using Hootsuite. And I believe they will let other tools do it too. But that's what in an ideal world, the reason you're using these tools is to save time, to be productive. Let's say if my audience is on Facebook and Twitter, instead of going to Facebook, posting, coming back, and then going to Twitter, I can create content and use one of these tools. Number one, post on 2 places at once, and then also schedule it in advance. But one thing that's really obvious as these tools or these platforms are maturing, Facebook and Twitter, Instagram, they are discouraging those tools. So recently, used to be if you had 2 Twitter accounts, let's say if you had a personal one and a business one, you could use a tool and post the same tweet to both. They have discontinued that, I think, last week. So do use the tools. I think the point I want to make is use the tools, save time, but keep in mind it will go back to if I can pick one place and put my 100% focus and energy on that one place, I would do that. So for me, it used to be that I would go spend time in Facebook groups, on Instagram, a lot of places. But what works for me today or at the moment is LinkedIn. So I'm getting a lot of attention. If you guys are LinkedIn, actually what happened used to be LinkedIn was only resume and job tool, but it's now kind of becoming like Facebook. So if you go to LinkedIn and look at your home feed, you're going to see selfie videos. You're going to see, sometimes memes, So it's becoming, I call it like professional storytelling platform. So when I saw that shift, then it made more sense for me to spend time there. So now that's my number one place that I spend time on.
And are you posting the same content on those multiple channels whenever you are putting something out?
Yes. So we talked about, the importance of producing content, right? Obviously, you guys have probably heard it. The video is the future, right? Everybody's sort of talking about, hey, make more videos, do more videos. I kind of go along the lines of content is super important. That's how people find us. That's how, we are ABC process. It's kind of like, imagine my example of all the startup founders are here in Node, but I have to go there. If I don't go to Node, if I don't show up, then I can't connect or attract these people, right? So same thing on social media. If we are not producing content, nothing's going to happen. The reason we know all these, just pick anyone, any celebrity, any influencer. The reason we actually don't know that person. We know them through the content that they produce. So content production is super, super important. Now, video is hot. Everyone is producing video, but I kind of say do what's easy for you. If you feel like, podcast is your thing, do the podcast. If you feel like video is your thing and it's natural, do that. If you feel like, you can write, do that. The reason being what I've seen, it's not about the best content, it's about the consistency. So if I consistently produce, content, and let's say if I consistently produce average videos, I will be able to build some audience on social media channels. So my sort of what has worked for me is picking a content format. Number one, I realized, yes, I have to produce content if I want to be found or known. Number two, now what type of content? So I produce content which is easy for me. So my process is I go to Quora and I find different questions people are asking on social media and marketing and Facebook ads and Instagram. That's my niche, right? I answer those questions and then I repurpose that content on my LinkedIn, on my Facebook, on my Instagram. Same exact content.
How do you answer those questions? In like an article form or a video, or what is?
So right now on LinkedIn, Quora, you can only, they are introducing video, but it's not a global rollout yet. The only way to answer a question is, write. So, but the good thing about there are no rules. You can write 2 lines, you can write 2 pages, you can write 2 paragraphs. So, but again, if I do that on consistent basis, what happens is, number one, it tells me what type of problems people have in marketing and social media. What are they really looking for? Where are they stuck? It's funny, I also, one of the things I do is I produce online courses. And I produced this awesome course about, how startups can use, I believe, Facebook ads to market themselves. And the first question I got was, hey, how do I create a Facebook page? So I kind of assumed that, hey, that's like the basic. That's like, you know that. And now let's, talk about marketing. So, going to Quora helps me really dial in with my audience and really see where they're stuck at, what type of questions they have. And then I can answer that, in a paragraph, in 2 lines, in 4 lines, and there are no rules. And then, if I do that on consistent basis, people start, now I get questions, people ask questions on Quora, and they specifically select me to answer those questions. Why? Because they realize, hey, here's this person, maybe he knows something about this topic. So, going back to, that's what I would suggest, that do produce content, don't ignore it. I think that's one of your questions too. That to me, that's the biggest mistake indie or individuals are making on social media. We're not producing content. We're not telling people of what we're building. We're kind of in a corner in our offices or home offices. We're building the game, we're building the app, and then we're going to release it and find out, hey, no one is actually using it. Why? Because we didn't really build it. The fancy word for this is building a community. We didn't really build a community along the way. So that's what I would, pick a place or pick a format that's easy for you. That's going to be really hard for you to quit. If it's video, awesome, because video is, as a consumers, we love watching video.
So let's get down into the nitty gritty of what it looks like. So let's talk about before you've released your app, and then maybe 6 months after you've released your app. What would you do? Because I definitely want to know, a lot of this is great, what you said. I'll be able to listen back to this and be able to pick up something totally new that I know I've already missed. And a lot of it is high-level advanced stuff. I'm still on the baby steps. I'm still on the how do you create a Facebook page step. But no, a little bit further than that. But I don't know. I have maybe more conflict than some people, but maybe everyone goes through this, of this dissonance of, am I posting too much? Am I annoying people? I just posted something about my product yesterday. Should I do it again today? So I would love to hear how you would approach, using one of these platforms, just picking one of them, since we're talking about keeping it simple, what does that look like any given week before a product is launched? What does that look like 6 months after a product has been launched?
Yeah.
How often am I tweeting? Once a week or 6 times a day? What does it look like?
So, there's a lot of data out there on how often should you post on Twitter, how often should you post on Facebook. I kind of use the rule, if I'm doing too much, people will tell me. So they'll say something, or I'll get like negative, dislikes or negative comments, and they'll tell me. Typically, I would say if you pick Facebook, at least post once a day. Same thing with Instagram. Same thing with LinkedIn. On Twitter, you should be tweeting at least 5 to 10 times. The reason a day, yes. Why? The reason is because Twitter is a really, really fast platform. Right? If you look at the homepage on Twitter, it's a bunch of tweets and stuff, this is gone. So if you post something, and only a very small percentage of your people are going to see it, and if I only post like once a week, no one knows I exist. No one will find me on Twitter, right? So this is where you can kind of do a basic search of, because it does change. It used to be on Facebook, if you would post, 4 times a day, it works. You get more reach. Right now, what I say, if you have a page, if you have an audience, and in your example, let's say you release the product and you have some audience, so go to your insights of the page and look at the data. It will tell you when your fans are most online. So it'll give you a graph of from 6 in the morning to midnight, and you'll see when most of your fans are online. So post at that time. And also post when least of your fans are online. The reason is because when most of your fans are online, a lot of other people are using the same tactic. So there are more content competing against your content. So when you post when least of your fans are online, it's kind of counterintuitive, right? But going back to your question, I want to answer that. Let's say if I'm releasing an app, hopefully I've created my marketing and my content strategies way in advance. It's not like I'm releasing an app next Monday and today I'm thinking about the content strategy. It won't work, right? Because I didn't give enough time to build that ABC factor or ABC process. So, but if it's the week that we're going to release the app, a lot of my content will be about it's coming. Here's what's happening. We submitted to and another thing that's really sort of a buzzword a lot of people are using in marketing, transparency. So tell people, show people what you're really up to. If you submitted to App Store and something went wrong, just hey, we did it and we made a mistake. Create a video about this. And we're going to do whatever we can to fix it. And instead of launching on Monday, it's going to be Tuesday. That is something that happened in your life, in your business. It's a brilliant piece of social media content. Because then people can sort of realize that, hey, these are real people. They make mistakes too. They do happen. So a week before the product is launched, based on my goals, obviously, I want to make a big splash, right? So I will my content will be around those, hey, it's coming here when we're launching on this date. One tactic that I would suggest, and actually anyone can do it, when you launch, make sure you have a list of, and I would say just pick, randomly between 20 to 30 people that your friends, or it could be your mom, your family, people who can support you the day you launch. So we come here, how many people do we usually get in this meetup? If I say 20, 25?
Yeah.
Right, so imagine you guys are working on an app, and in 6 months from today, you're going to release the app. So the 6 months, you're probably going to meet almost 125 people. Exchange business cards with them and ask them, hey, I'm working on this app. And once I release it, would you mind tweeting it for me? Would you mind using it, giving me feedback? Would you mind leaving a potential review for it? So again, build a sort of, the fancy word for this is a community again, or a tribe of people who are going to support you in the in the initial phase. So a week before the launch, this is what I would be doing. My content will be about, hey, it's coming, we're launching, this is what's happening. And at the same time, I would make a list of all the people, all the friends and the family that I have connected with in previous months. And once I send them an email, it will be really hard for them to say no. And by the way, I use this tactic. I released my food app, and on purpose, what I did, I looked at, and here's another sort of hack or a tactic not a lot of people use. How many events happen in Dallas? There's 1 million cups. There is Big DNT. And there's like few more. There's a Big Dog, the Open Coffee Club. So imagine the people who go to these events, they may not be your primary target audience. They're not, let's say, the moms who are going to use that app, but they are people like us, right? They're also entrepreneurs or startup founders or coaches. These are the people, they may not use our product, but they can give us that initial push. So what I did, on purpose, I went to all of these events to pitch my app. My number one goal was to get people, I asked them towards the end, hey, if you don't like the app, that's fine, but I do need your feedback. Use it and then send me the feedback through the email or through the message through the app. So the reason was, number one, I showed them what my product was. Number two was, hey, give me the feedback, but at the same time, I need your support. So when the time, do the relationship building. But when it comes time to launch, don't be afraid or don't hesitate to ask. So I use these events, and I believe, again, it's kind of not a sort of by the book tactic, but it's another hack that you can use. Imagine, again, my example of in 6 months, how many people you're going to meet? 125. If you exchange business card, you'll probably have 50 business cards. And if you kind of drop the email intro with those 50, at least 25 of them will say, hey, once you launch, let me know. I'll tweet it for you. I'll share your Facebook status. So, that's what I would do a week before the launch. Tactics of producing content, plus whatever you want to call these gray hat, black hat, white hat tactic of sort of building a tribe of people who are going to support me. After the launch, again, it goes back to what's my goal now? Is there a version 2 coming? Or are we done? Or, is our goal now we have now product market fit, which means I built a product and now people are coming and using it and we're making money. That's called in my mind, product market fit. Now, if you achieve that, then your goal becomes, let's scale it. Now we have 100 people coming in and using the app. Let's get that 100 number to 1,000 or 1 million, which means you're putting more money into marketing and advertising. But if you're building phase 2, then maybe with the first phase, you were getting the feedback. Or you were trying to see, hey, did I really solve the right problem? So based on those objectives or those goals, what you would do in phase 2 would be different. The type of content that you would produce will be different. But one thing will be common, and to me, that's the thing. What people miss out: do not go silent. Whatever you're up to. So maybe you're running into problems. Maybe you are. You have amazing product and you're getting awesome, ideal case, awesome feedback. So turn those different moments into social media or marketing content. So let's say you have a great product and a lot of people are, leaving good reviews. Start talking to those people. Did you guys notice there was an initiative called Uber Stories, I believe, or Lyft Stories, where they were talking to different Lyft drivers and kind of capturing their videos. Yes, user-generated content. So that happened after the product is built. So same concept. So if you built a really good product, if you hit the nail on the head, then start talking to those customers and start capturing their stories, and that's your marketing content. And let's say we missed the mark. Let's say we built something and we're not sure it's not working out. Then what's the next step? Are we going to scrap it, or are we going to build like a phase 2, which is better? Whatever you're doing, then build content around that. Content around the lines of, hey, here's the mistake. We released phase 1. Here's the mistakes we made. Our assumption was this, but we were wrong. And here's our plan to fix it. That sort of content. And another thing is, when we talk about content development, our attract phase. So imagine, I'll go back to my example since I used it. If I'm targeting you guys here and this is the meetup, imagine if I come here every single meetup or every single time we do this, and I'm like, hey guys, I'm the social media expert, work with me. Hey guys, I'm the best marketing person you're ever gonna find, work with me. you're going to hate me, right? It doesn't work like that. So your content cannot be one-dimensional. Your content cannot be just about you. The way you produce content is, yes, you have to talk about your business, plus your target audience that we identified in step number 1. What else do they like? What other problems they have that we can talk about? And how does this work in real life? We talk about, hey, what else do you like? What are you working on? What type of, football, or, maybe you like football. So you find your content is not 100% about you or your product. And I kind of like the rule of 80-20. So 20% of the time, talk about your business or your app. 80% of the time, talk about not salesy content, but still content that your audience will find valuable. So, if our audience is moms, right? What else moms find valuable? Coupons, recipes, right? Baby videos, right? So all the content, because here's the thing, our goal when we produce content or social media is to become a person who is a source of information on that topic, not a salesman on that topic. If we come across as a salesperson, there's no business. That's the biggest turnoff we can do. So that's what, going back to your question, a week before the launch, I will continue posting around, hey, it's coming, plus build however you want to build that audience. Maybe it's a getaway of exchanging business cards. Maybe, hopefully if you had an email capture box on your website and maybe you have email lists, ideally, that's the ideal in my mind. Whatever way, build your tribe, people who can support you. And then after the launch, then look at what's the goal and continue producing content that's, number 1, shows transparent content. It really tells people what this company is doing internally. And number 2, continue to educate, inform that audience. Like, let's say you launch the Thrive Baby app. Those moms, right, they continue to shop. If it's Christmas, right, they're going to be looking for what's the best place to do Christmas shopping. If it's Valentine's Day coming, right, what's the best, top 5 places to go for Valentine's date? And I know it's not our business, right? As a Thrive Baby app, that's not our business. We're not like a food company or we're not like a restaurant, but our audience, this is the type of content that they want. Yes, did you have a question?
Well, actually, I mean, that was awesome. I do want to make sure everyone has time for questions, so I think this would be a great time to transition to that. Before we go to questions, let's just give Ali a great hand. This has been awesome. Yeah, I mean, I still have like a list of questions and topics on here, but I feel like this has sort of found its own value points, organically of what we've been talking about.
Yeah, one thing I want to, unfortunately, I feel the people in my industry, people who are social media marketers, we don't educate on this point enough. Because our primary business, the way we make a living is by charging people. When people come to us and we do their social media marketing, we make money. But we don't educate them. In my mind, the way you build a business, any business, especially startup, you need 3 things. And you might want to write this down. So number 1 is, are you solving the right problem? Number 2 is, are people willing to pay for your solution? Number 3 is, can you find these people at scale? Number 3 is sort of marketing. Number 3 is where you go hire people like me or other marketing agencies. But number 1 and 2 is actually, in fancy words, is customer development. So this is where a lot of times when startups work with social media companies, and it's a process. It does not happen overnight. There is unfortunately, no shortcut. You can use hacks. Like I mentioned, I've used when I was releasing my app, I used the hack of exchanging business cards. So I met a person, actually, a real story and really funny one. So I knew if I'm launching an app and Dallas Business Journal talked about my app, it would be a pretty cool deal, right? So I figured out who's the person who talks about startups in Dallas Business Journal. So it was a lady, And I met her at different events. I exchanged business cards. I did not pitch anything. I did not tell her what I was working on. Second time I met her accidentally, I told her what I was working on. Because these are startup people, right? So I know the events that they hang out at, right? So I mentioned what I was working on. Then I followed her on Twitter. Then I started leaving comments on her different pages or her articles. Then I followed her or added her on LinkedIn. And when we released the app, I still have the emails. I did not even have to pitch. Because, when I released the app, I went to every single event and told people, hey, here's the app that I built. And then she happened to be in one of the audiences. And she just sent me an email, hey, it's a time to let's talk about 5.0. That was the name of my app. So, going back to, there are different hacks you can use, but building a brand, building a community, it's a process, it takes time. There are no sort of shortcuts, unfortunately. And, again, the reason the point I wanted to make is a lot of times like I said, we make money when people pay us for our advice or opinion or doing marketing, but we don't educate people enough on this process, the 3 steps that I mentioned. Let's go to Q&A.
Cool.
I think that was one of your questions too. Yep. So if you had a budget as a startup, how would you spend it? I would actually, not spend on advertising to cold, because here's the objective, right? If my objective is to let's spend this budget, let's say we have $1,000 and our goal is to get the app downloads, right? If we're going to target the audience and they don't know who we are, we're going to run into that problem of, hey, these people don't even know who we are. It's a completely cold audience. We don't even know if they're going to click or not. What I would do is spend that money on what we discussed earlier, the influencer marketing. So find people who already have the audience that is my audience, that is my potential audience for my app, pay them to talk about me. And I know you guys probably haven't heard this term before, but it's a business in itself. Influencer marketing, because a lot of people who have built the audiences, now this is how they're monetizing it. They will be more than happy to get paid to do this. It's just the process that I kind of talked about earlier. Ignore the top ones and go after the baby influencers first, because they won't charge you, So at my agency, iSocialU, 80% of the revenue I make is by Facebook ads. And actually, I discourage startups to use Facebook ads. The reason is, again, if you don't have that know, like, and trust factor built into your ads, if you don't build that process, and I'll tell you how the right way to use the ads too, then it's very expensive. It's very expensive, and then you either run out of money or you get discouraged. The way I would use Facebook ads or in the campaigns I would create is, so let's say if you have $1,000 budget and you want to go after the cold audience, right? I would spend first $100, and on that $100, I'll create one campaign and target the fans of my competition. Because on Facebook, how many people have created ads in Facebook, by the way? So I kind of, okay. So on Facebook, you can create ads and target people by interest. You can target fans of different businesses. So let's say if I'm opening a fast food restaurant, I can target the McDonald's fans who live in Dallas. So I know they have already told Facebook they like fast food. So if I'm opening a fast food restaurant, they're likely to like my place too. And a lot of different ways. So what I would do is, the way I would use spend $1,000, test the first $200 on these different campaigns. So one campaign, let's say $5 a day, is targeting people by interest. The second, and actually let's make it more relevant. Let's say we're creating ad for Thrive Baby. So we'll create one ad, $5 per day, and target moms that age range who live in Dallas. And then we create another campaign and now target mom who live in Dallas, plus they like Lululemon. That's another $5 per day campaign. And then we'll create another campaign and moms who live in Dallas And maybe there's, another competition of yours that, is there any like yoga studios? There probably are like a lot of yoga studios in Dallas. So let's target, yoga studios. So those 3 campaigns, let them run for a week and then look at the data and see which one performed the best and then spend the rest of the money on that. What happens is this works really good if you're trying to build awareness, if you're trying to do A and B. If you want to just attract them to your page, or if you, let's say if you have a cool video, if you want to, show them the video and get the likes and shares and possibly comment, it works great. But if the goal is to get these people to our website so they can download the app, it's expensive. Yes. Yeah. So the reason actually is a really good question. I'm glad you noticed that. The more targeted, the way ads work is if I click on an ad, and let's say I go to a place, and now that place or that website is different than the ad, or it's not really like speaking to me, now you've lost that person, right? So the reason I would actually be more specific and even city, because imagine we made on our website for Thrive Baby, we said the best app for Dallas mom. Here's why Dallas moms love Thrive Baby, and then there are 2 videos. And we targeted moms in Dallas. And then when they click and they go to their website, they're gonna feel like, hey, it's speaking to me. So you don't really have to. You could, because on Facebook, you can target pretty much anyone in the world. You can target United States, you can target all other countries. But it always benefits, if you try to go specific in the beginning, it benefits you. Because then, hey, I know, let's say this week or Dallas Startup Week is coming next, right? And we're launching something that's related to business. We can actually, on our landing pages, we can talk about Dallas Startup Week. Hey, startup founder, you clicked on my ad, and I know you're going to Dallas Startup Week. By the way, come say hi, and here's the new app. So you make, the more relevant you make your ad and your website to the person, the better your results are. And the way you make it relevant is when you go specific. So that's the reason. But you do have the ability to, target pretty much anyone on Facebook, and you would use the Facebook platform to target on Instagram too. But since kind of relevant to this question too, in this example, we're targeting or creating ads, we're advertising, and our goal is to get the users, right? So instead of ads, what I would do is again can I use this money and steal someone else's audience? Because let's say I don't have that audience built in. But let's take an example of, let's say, if someone really listened to my advice and they started building their app, they also started building their community. Let's say they created an Instagram page or a Facebook page, and the 6 months of product development, now they also have, let's pick a number, 2,000, 3,000 people on their Facebook page, which is not huge, actually, or their Instagram page. What I would do is, a week before the launch, right, I would create some videos on my Facebook page, videos along the lines of our product is coming or we're launching soon. On Facebook, you have the ability to capture people who watch your videos. So I'll create an audience on Facebook of the people who watched these coming soon videos. And then when I have the $1,000 budget, I'll spend my $1,000 budget to target this audience. So what I did, I know it's kind of complex, but the reason Facebook ads don't work is because people don't know us, right? People don't know what Ali's coffee shop is. They know what Starbucks is, right? So how do we make sure that people know us a little bit? So what we did is we did build the audience, 2,000, 3,000, 1,000, any number of fans. Before we launched and before we asked them, hey, download our app, we produced some videos, and maybe it's series of videos. It's 5 videos in a week or in a month. And we're gonna see out of these 1,000 people or 2,000 people who are really into our product. And then our conversion ads or ads that are gonna ask them to download our product is only going to be shown to these people because they have already told me by watching more than 50% of my video that, hey, I'm interested in your product. So, this whole process, the fancy word for this is warming up your audience. So if you are going to use Facebook ads in this context, I would suggest warm up the audience, before you show them the ads to download your app or your product. But again, going back to if I had the choice, I would spend that money, especially for a launch or in the beginning, trying to steal someone else's audience. So you can approach the influencers and to build your audience. So let's say, you identified Instagram is place for me. You can reach influencers. And by the way, sometimes they'll do a shout out in Instagram's language for only $5. So hopefully, in your example, hopefully we know what the customer lifetime value is, right? In this case, I will keep spending money on the ads. So here's the the short answer. If you know for a fact that you're going to spend $5 to get a new user, and you're going to make $500 in a year from the user, you'll keep spending that $5. The problem that a lot of startups run into, they don't have the fancy word for this is unit economics. Right? What's the cost per acquisition? What's the cost per click? What's the churn? What's the lifetime value of the customer? So what I tell people, once you have the business, the unit economic numbers, and if it makes sense, then all you would do is run ads. But what happens is from a lot of ads that I've run, especially for startups, it doesn't make sense. Because when let's say, create ads it's really easy to create ad and target moms. What's really hard is those first 2 points. Did we really create something that they need solution for? Are we really solving a problem that they're willing to pay for? And a lot of times startups in the beginning, when they don't have the product market fit, they're trying to figure that part out. Yes. Yeah. And then, if I had the money, use the ad. If we had the marketing budget. But here's something interesting that I actually recently been experimenting. If you have the budget and your goal is to just get the app installed, Snapchat ads work really good. Yes. Yes. For a certain, yes, that's very true. If your audience is, again, obviously we know who is and where they are. Snapchat ads, if your target audience is, that age range, that demographic, the cost per click is super, super low. And, it makes sense because Google, right now, the most expensive ads are Google ads. Actually, let me take that back. Most expensive ads are LinkedIn ads. Then second one are Google ads. And the reason is, Google is a really mature platform. Facebook ads used to be really, really cheap. They're not anymore. So what's the other platform? So, maybe on Instagram, you can do some comparison, but I've actually created some ads on Snapchat. And really, if the goal is to just get the users, and since we have the money, let's spend it, get the users, then I would say, look at the platforms that are upcoming and not really being talked about. Another thing you'll be surprised, I produced a course. I teach online, so I have classes on different channels or different marketplaces. I use Reddit ads. So I created ads on Reddit to sell my courses. So again, if your audience is there on that platform, so there are sort of like hidden gems you can explore.
Great. All right. Well, I think we're going to wrap it there. But maybe the last thing is, what should we all do tomorrow? Like we're going to be on these social platforms, and we'll be thinking, what did Ali say? What do I need to do? What should every person do here tomorrow?
Yes. So I do have a homework assignment.
Okay. Great.
Yeah. So like I mentioned, to me the biggest mistake or the thing we're missing out, all of us, I would say, we're using these social media platforms as places where we go and post memes and go have fun. But start talking about what you're like doing in your business life as well. So go to, pick, if you're active, you like Facebook, you like Instagram, like, whatever channel, start talking, whatever app you're building, start telling people about that product. Start sharing, there's a fancy word for this is storytelling, right? So start sharing your story. And I call it, whatever you're working on. And, sometimes maybe you're at a job and you don't want to reveal you're working on an app. There are ways to talk about stuff and still be okay. There's an app and you're not sure if you're gonna build it or not. And you're like, hey, should I tell other people or not? So there are ways that you can kind of like go around those mindset. But my advice will be, or suggestion and homework is, just start talking about the stuff that you're working on. Because that's when we talk about the things that we're really passionate about and the things we're working on, that's the step number one to building the audience. If we don't do that, we can't build the audience. If you go to networking events and don't talk, don't mingle, don't exchange business cards, that nothing happens. So we have to share. So what I would say is just pick, if you want to talk about, one idea is whatever app you're building on, hey, really simple. This is what I'm working on, and here's my challenges. Here's how I'm planning on solving these challenges. By the way, can someone help me? Is there a graphic designer in my audience that can help me? So you can even ask for help. That's one idea. The other idea is I use specifically when I go to these networking events. Yes, number one goal is to connect with people. Number two is I actually use it to produce content. Because imagine all these questions I heard, and if you guys add me, in later, tomorrow, day after, next week, you'll see me talking about these topics. So this is how, when I go to different networking events, I tell people the best way to sort of build content idea is go network. And we feel like when we go network with people, we're selling, and that's not the right way to look at it. You're building relationships, and that's like content idea. So number one, my advice or homework is share something, post something about what you're working on. If you can, for some reason, number two is what's the one thing that you guys learned from today? Look back, and maybe, I said something, maybe you met, someone, you made a new friend, talk about that person, or talk about, what you learned from that experience. One thing I like to, obviously, it's not a lot of times, some people are really good at talking about themselves. I mean, that's all they do, right? And I'm not, I'm the opposite, right? So I think most of us are like that. It's kind of weird talking about ourselves. So what I kind of, developed, and I did it to Nick, and I don't think he realized it. I produce content and I make other people look good in that content. So I asked Nick a question. He told me he was doing a podcast, right? I asked him, hey, Nick, if someone doing a podcast, what's the number one tip you would give? So he told me, and then I was like, hey, can I do that, capture that in a 30-second or 1-minute video? He said, yes. So it became a social media piece of content. When I share that content, I'm behind the camera. I'm making someone else look good in that piece of content. So imagine what happened. Number one, I met Nick. Number two, we have a better relationship than before. Number three, Nick is going to feel really special. Number four, people in my audience on social media, they're going to see me talking about podcasting, marketing, these topics. So I'm still doing A. So point being, you can produce content and don't feel like it has to be about you.
That's awesome. All right. Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah. Yeah, Ollie, thanks so much for coming out and talking with us tonight.
Now you know what happened.
Yeah, I know. You freaking used me, dude.
But I do this because I created a whole series out of this. You know that, right? The Learn with Ali and the One Tip Show. So I do this with everyone that I meet.
Yeah, I love it, man. That's awesome. So yeah, we're going to stick around here. Just probably will be around for the next hour. You certainly don't have to stick around if you don't want to, but just for chatting and all that stuff. Thank you guys so much for coming out. This is going to be our new home for the meetups, except for our meetups that are the night out, and that one is at Sherlock's, right? Ooh. Yeah, that's right. So that's a good place too. So thank you for coming out.
I can come to that one too, right?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, if you have questions, you can ask Ali tonight or ask him online. Yes, yeah. But he is going to use it for content.
Yes, absolutely.
All right. Good night, y'all. Thanks for coming out. For show notes and links mentioned in the podcast, visit gamedevdeconstructed.com. Support the podcast by following us on Facebook and Twitter, and by rating and subscribing on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, or wherever you stream the show. That's all for this episode, and I hope to see you all next time.